Hello and welcome to Cycles of Time, your weekly guide to what's happening on Earth as we make our revolutionary journey around the sun. For time immemorial, our human ancestors have created myths and meanings to help us adapt and thrive as seasons change. Join me each week to explore the intersections of these ancient cycles, from the indigenous medicine wheel to the pagan wheel of the year, the Babylonian and Greek zodiac to the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes. I'm your host, Allison Dale, and this is the Cycles of Time podcast. Hello, and welcome to Cycles of Time. This is Allison, and I am here in Panama, in Boquete, Panama, in a little log cabin. So if the audio sounds a little different, I'm trying out this on-the-road recording for Cycles of Time, trying to work remotely as I travel around. So apologies if it's sounding a little bit off than it does in this normal studio recordings. And with that disclaimer aside, this is the Wheel of the Year Week 4 episode. This is your forecast for April 13th to 19th, 2025. And I'm calling this episode Trailblazing Through the Chaos. So happy full moon hangover, everyone. How did that full moon in Libra treat you yesterday? Or if you're listening to this later on, how did it treat you last Saturday, April 12th? I put together this episode and recording this episode right after the moon reached her fullness, sitting on the deck of a kind of chilly log cabin in the Panamanian mountain jungle, watching hummingbirds flit around me in the humid evening air. And I'm here on a trip with my entire family, my partner and my daughter and my brother and sister-in-law and my parents, who both just celebrated their 75th birthdays and are the reason behind making this journey to this bird watcher's mecca to see the resplendent quetzal and dozens and hundreds of other birds that live up here in the mountains of Panama. It's very, very beautiful, and waterfalls and rivers running through, and just, I've never been chilly in Central America, so it feels really amazing. They have a coffee here called geisha coffee that is very fancy and very different and has incredible tasting notes and tastes kind of just unlike anything I've ever tasted. So up here with the birds and the coffee, and it's been a journey. We arrived here last week when the sun was in the gate of shock, and I'll just say that I wouldn't recommend traveling with family during the gate of shock necessarily, especially when everyone is detoxing / having withdrawals from the American shitshow that is this current moment in everyone's own way, dealing with kind of, just the stepping outside of the current moment and being in a completely different environment, and just dealing with everything. It's really interesting to be in a group of people that you know very well and also not at all about their day-to-day lives. And since you're a kid and then suddenly you're in the jungle and you're in a house together, and lots of relational issues have been rising to the surface, as you might imagine, which can definitely be expected when you're crammed into a minivan together, driving along windy roads. But especially when a full moon in the relational sign of Libra is acting as the energetic overseer of the whole trip. So this was the first full moon last weekend, or on Saturday, that was out of eclipse season. And eclipse season was that long and deep underground portal that kind of sucked us under for the past month or so. And on the same day, Libra's planetary ruler, the planet Venus, stationed direct after 40 days retrograde. Venus has been retrograde since March 1st, and a couple hours after the full moon, Venus stationed direct. So she brought with her lots of new relational revelations out of her cave of reflective mirrors. And in addition to that, making the full moon that we just experienced all the more intense and revelatory, we had Chiron, the asteroid wounded healer, sitting up opposite the moon, conjunct with the sun, bringing deep wounds and hopefully some healing balms to the surface as well. During her fullness, Luna was shining bright in the human design gate of continuity, which is gate 32, and that was across the sky from the sun and Chiron that were both in the gate of growth, which is the Aries gate 42. And this opposition between continuity and growth really highlighted the polarity between emotionally holding on tightly to patterns from our past. That's the moon in continuity. So the moon is our emotions, and the gate of continuity is all about holding on really tight to what worked in the past. And then at the opposite side of the sky, we had the sun and Chiron in the gate of growth, which is kind of all about how something must end, or old patterns need to end in order to make space for a new dynamic to exist or a new pattern to take hold. So hopefully there was some healing that happened. There were some things that came to the surface in order to be healed with this full moon. And, a lot of times full moons can bring tension to the surface, but other times they can provide the perfect opportunity for balanced reflection and breakthrough. So I'm curious how that all showed up in your world. It was a very, very potent and powerful full moon for me and my family and my relationships, close relationships all around. So I was driving back from this little hot springs canyon here in Panama and saw the full moon rising today, and it was just so beautiful coming through the jungle. Just a very different view than I normally get my home in the desert, and just it kind of made everybody in the car stop and kind of gasp, and made me feel like there's just this deep connection regardless of what's going on relationally to the moon, which felt really nice. So this week, leaving the full moon a little bit in the past and moving forward along with Venus, this week we have a whole new slew of powerful energetics happening in the astrological human design and Wheel of the Year realms. Mercury, who went direct last week, is entering the fire sign of Aries. Mars is entering the fire sign of Leo after what felt like the longest retrograde ever in Cancer. And the sun continues its transit through the human design gate of growth, gate 42, and then on Wednesday enters the gate of ordering, gate 3. And then finally on Sunday, Taurus season begins. So we're wrapping up Aries season this week after 6 human design gates of the season. And the gate of ordering is the bridge gate that kind of transitions us between Aries and Taurus. The gate of ordering in the gene keys is moving from the shadow of chaos to the gift of innovation to the city of innocence. And innocence was the first gate of Aries season. Gate 25 is the gate of innocence. And so it's really interesting that the city, this kind of like high frequency of the last gate of Aries season, would be the same as the very beginning of Aries season. This theme of innocence is very prevalent in Aries. And the gate of the baby lamb, the gate of innocence, ushered in spring on the spring equinox. Gate 25 is the bridge gate between Pisces and Aries. And it basically is all about kind of coming into this world anew and in the astrological new year and opening up our eyes to the new world around us, the new cycle. But throughout the course of Aries season, we have learned a lot in the past month. So much has happened, and we've had so many different energies come to the surface. So we can look at this final gate, the gate of ordering, as a return to innocence, essentially. It is with the shadow of chaos. It's like when we're in a state of fear, we can believe that chaos means disorder and that we must control that situation through putting order to it and having control over the situation. But instead, what the energy is really all about this week is recognizing that chaos actually means void, which is similar to the root word for chasm. Chaos and chasm have a similar root. And that is something very different than disorder. Chaos is more of a void where something completely new can be formed through the powers of creativity and innovation, rather than an obsession with order and control and putting disordered pieces back into place. So I really am curious and interested in this gate of ordering, the gate that will take us from Aries into Taurus through that big transition in the solar wheel of the year. But doing a little reflection, looking back on Aries season, we began again in the gate of innocence and then proceeded through the gates of opinions, the gate of the hunter, the gate of shock, the gate of growth, and now the gate of ordering here at the end. So the baby Aries lamb has grown up into a fully mature ram. And hopefully through the process of all of these beautiful I Ching gates, or I Ching hexagrams and human design gates, the ram has learned that we can only go after our own desires after we learn about the opinions of others. And he's learned that the periods of greatest growth often come after a shock of some kind, a revelation coming from a shock. And that the greatest growth also comes when you are willing to let something end in order for a new and better thing to begin. The ram has also discovered that the messiness and chaos of the void, once you do create that space to let something new in, is the perfect birthplace to blaze a trail, be a trailblazer, and spark a truly different and new innovation. So this growth process of Aries has been really fascinating to deepen into this year as I walk the wheel of the year. Last year, I was really learning about it in earnest and learning about each of the gates. And now it's kind of putting it together into this story arc that is super fascinating. Just the order in which these energies are in from the ancient I Ching and how it lines up with the season of the year, with this early spring and the beginning of the new year, the astrological new year, and how it really lines up with the themes of Aries season, which is forward momentum and certain assertion and power and immediacy, and kind of like a baby just like going forward and doing what they want to do in the world. But there's a certain order to it all. There's a certain learning process that's so necessary to grow up. And so as we move into Taurus season at the end of this week, I invite you to reflect on how Aries season and all of these micro seasons and energetic frequencies showed up in your world over the course of the past month. I invite you to journal about it, or just visualize yourself as a little lamb growing up into a strong ram up on a mountain peak, and kind of what has happened over the past month that might have taken you from a place of kind of naive innocence to a place of open-minded innocence. I feel like this year situations are changing incredibly fast, and with that, we too have the opportunity to change quickly as well, and change into the version of ourselves that we truly wish to align with. And that's what I hope for everyone this week and onward as we travel through the wheel of the year in 2025 and beyond. And so let's dive in a little deeper to the energies of the wheel of the year for this week. And just wanting to send you all the beauty and power of Venus as she returns to her forward speed and motion. So this week in the Wheel of the Year, we are continuing through the medicine wheel direction east, which represents childhood and the season of spring and the element earth. In the whooshing Taoist 5-element cycle, which is popular in Chinese medicine, we are in the element wood, the upward growth of the element wood. We're in the pagan season of Ostara, heading towards Beltane on May 1st, coming up soon here. The zodiac season is moving from Aries to Taurus on April 19th. And then in the I Ching and Human Design Wheel of the Year, we're moving from Gate 42, the Gate of Growth, to Gate 3, the Gate of Ordering. And in the I Ching, the Gate of Growth is known as increase or wind over thunder, and the Gate of Ordering is known as water over thunder or difficulty at the beginning. And growth is from April 11th to 15th, and that's Tuesday. And then ordering begins on April 16th and lasts until the 21st, taking us into Taurus season. We're waning. The moon is waning after that full moon in Libra last weekend. And as far as planetary transits go, I don't always mention all of the planetary transits, but some important ones here are that Mercury is entering Aries this week and Mars is entering Leo. And so we have a couple of our inner planets, our personal planets, entering fire signs and coming out of water signs. So it feels like as we get into this gate of ordering and innovation, we are being sparked with a certain fire energy as well. So let's dive into the sun's journey through the Wheel of the Year as we finish up Aries season. And we're moving from growth to ordering in these final two gates of Aries. So again, from April 11th to 15th, where the sun is transiting through the gate of growth, gate 42. And we're being invited to continue on this sacred journey that we've been on to grow by completing what we start. We saw this polarity with the full moon in Libra, where the opposite gate across the wheel from 42 was the gate of continuity, which is all about continuing what feels familiar. And so this Aries energy, this last full gate of Aries, gate 42, is all about finishing what we start. And in human design, gate 42 has an energy of expansion and maturation, but not in a frantic or scattered way. It's more about nurturing a process through its full cycle, from seed to bloom to harvest and back again. So it's a really cyclical gate. In the I Ching, this is hexagram 42 that's called increase, symbolized by wind over thunder. And this teaches that true abundance and success come from adding energy to what is already growing, not constantly chasing something new, and not retreating back to the past. So it's really about tending to what's alive already and tending what's alive within you in a patient way, in a joyful way, and kind of adding to that so that it can complete its full cycle. In the gene keys, this gate 42 has the shadow of expectation, which is that trap of trying to control how things unfold and having a lot of expectations about how things should be. And we talked about this last week quite a bit more. And then the gift level of the gene keys of this gate is detachment, where we move beyond fear and kind of having too many strict expectations and move into this feeling of just trusting that life's rhythms are wiser than our personal timelines, and just trusting in the larger cycles. And ultimately, at the city level, we arrive at celebration, which is really fully embracing each moment as sacred, no matter how messy or unexpected it looks. So I would say this gate of growth is often misunderstood because growth I don't know. I think when I looked at the gates, they were coming up when I was going to be on this trip. I saw the gate of shock and then the gate of growth right after that. And I was like, whew, shock sounds scary. Shock sounds intense. But then right after that is growth. And that sounds great. That sounds nice. Like there's a bit of, it felt, yeah, like kind of a balanced, spring-like, sprout-like kind of energy that felt really nice. But ultimately, I think what I've learned over this first part of the gate of growth, and we're still in it, but it's that it is kind of tending, it's a more of a maintenance oriented gate. It's an energy where you might have encountered a certain shocking revelation or something that came to the surface last week. And then in order to grow from that shock, you have to continue to tend to it. And I always think about, just a sprout that is popping up and then a snowstorm hits and it kind of gets shocked down. And there's certain plants that can make it through a freeze like that, but it requires a lot more repair and maintenance in order to grow after a shock. And that's kind of what this season brings in for me is, a visual of a daffodil sprouting up and then a hard freeze coming along, and what kind of care and nurturance and kind of a little bit of retreat and recoiling is required. And so, in this case, growth doesn't always feel straightforward or glamorous. It can be tending to a project long after the excitement of the project fades, or watering your inner garden even when the results aren't instant. It's a faith-based gate, really, where we have to believe that the cycle will continue even if we don't see evidence in the current moment. So it's showing up with faith and knowing that with time your efforts will bear fruit and the cycle will continue. So as we wrap up this gate over the next few days, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, we can ask ourselves, where am I being invited to commit more deeply, to persevere through to the end? And can ask ourselves also, can I let go of how I think it should look and celebrate how far I've already come? So those are a couple reflections for the week. So a couple of tips that I would say for working with this energy over the first couple of days are picking one thing that you've started recently and recommitting to that thing. I've recently started to study Spanish in earnest, and I'm like okay at Spanish, but I was doing my Duolingo and had a nice streak, and then kind of started to travel around and get busy, and I lost it during the time when I should be practicing it even more while I'm in a Spanish-speaking country. And so I'm ready to recommit and maybe be a little bit creative about how I'm learning Spanish. Duolingo's okay, but not my favorite. Picking one thing that you've started recently and then just deciding, oh, hey, maybe I fell off the wagon for a few days, but let's recommit back to that so it can continue to grow. And another tip is, rather than rushing to the next shiny idea, give your energy to what's already sprouting. Again, this energy of increasing what is already in existence. It's what's already coming up, as we are not in the beginning of Aries season, we're in the end. And then watch how life rewards that steady devotion. So, some of these words, steadiness and commitment, do sound a little bit more like the gate of continuity, perhaps, which is across the sky from the gate of growth. And all of the gates, all of the energies that are across the wheel from each other do carry a similar energy to each other. They have kind of a sister sibling quality to them. And so it's interesting to see how this polarity does show up its similarities, but also really thinking about this one, the gate of growth, where Chiron stays as well as the sun. It's about, yeah, finishing up what you started. So, yeah, honoring the journey from seed to flower and celebrating every step along the way of your personal growth and growth of those around you. So that's, I think, enough about the gate of growth. On Wednesday, April 16th, the sun transits into gate 3, which is known as the gate of ordering in the Human Design Wheel of the Year. And it's a very different but equally vital flavor to the energetics of the week. And it is that of order emerging from chaos. And in human design, it's known as the gate of ordering, but that word kind of throws me off a little bit because, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, we don't want to think of ordering as neat and tidy organizing, like lining up books on a shelf. Instead, the gate of ordering is more about natural and organic ordering, the kind of messy and beautiful way that a river carves its path through the rock over time. It's that kind of emergent order and organic order that this gate is talking about, rather than kind of creating lines out of a chaotic mess. And like I mentioned earlier, it's about viewing chaos in a different way, as more of a void that has infinite potential instead of a mess as such. So in the I Ching, hexagram 3 is called difficulty at the beginning, and this is symbolized by the trigrams water over thunder. And hexagram 3 reminds us that every new beginning feels chaotic at first because structures are still forming. And so that feels difficult. It takes time for a new idea or a new life or a new relationship to find its footing. And so this idea of chaos, ordering, difficulty at the beginning, they're all related to each other. And in the gene keys, some more words flowing through. The gene key for this gate has the shadow level of chaos, that wild and unpredictable energy that can feel overwhelming. And then it has the gift of innovation, which is a creative solution that could only emerge through improvisation and out of chaos, essentially, and a bit of a surrender to the unknown and allowing the past and patterns of the past to fall away. And then again, the city level, the highest level here is innocence, which is a state of pure openness, a place where we can meet life without fear or judgment. So this gate, like I mentioned, bridges us from Aries into Taurus. And I love thinking about this gate as the time when we shifting our focus from ourselves to ourselves that exist within our environment. So as we bridge from Aries to Taurus, we can think of the first two signs of the zodiac, Aries and Taurus, as both kind of self-oriented signs. I've heard of Aries as like the me sign and Taurus as the mine sign. So Aries is ruled by Mars, and it's kind of all about an impulsive awareness of like the primal meanness within ourselves, that kind of infancy of looking at the world super fresh and by nature, by default, considering just who we are within that. Who am I? And then as we move into Taurus, Taurus is ruled by Venus, and it's more about kind of what we engage with in our environment and what is ours. Venus is the planet of values. It's the planet of sensuality, the planet of art and beauty and touch. And Taurus season is all about the time when the sprouts have popped up out of the ground and the flowers are starting to bloom in the northern hemisphere in a lot of places. And so it's just, there is a certain sensuality to Taurus season, just in the weather and in the plant life that's popping up. And so toddlerhood is associated with Taurus, whereas Aries is correlated with infancy. And I think about toddlers as a life stage as very sensual little beings, in this way that they are sensory oriented and they're touching everything and smelling everything and putting things in their mouths. And that's kind of what Taurus season is like. It's like everything is more fragrant. There's a lot more different senses coming online than there have been in the winter or in Aries season, when things are still kind of starting to just identify with themselves in the new cycle. And so Taurus season is really, shifting from this is about me to this is about me and my environment. And so it's really interesting to have the gate of ordering, bridging us from me to mine, from Aries to Taurus, from focusing on ourselves to focusing on ourselves with others and with our environmental realm. And as I was listening to the Gene Keys chapter, I was listening to an audiobook about Gate 3, about the Gate of Ordering. Richard Rudd was talking about quantum biology, and I've gotten really into researching quantum biology ever since listening to that, because he's kind of talking about how in the realm of physics, we had Newtonian physics and then quantum physics, with Einstein coming into the picture. And there's a lot of that we still don't quite understand or grok when it comes to what quantum physics really means. But we kind of have accepted that that is the nature of reality, even if we don't quite understand it. But quantum biology is kind of a newer field. It's applying quantum principles to biology. And so there are some researchers within the field of quantum biology, Bruce Lipton being one of them, and his research presents this paradigm shift in the field of biology by identifying that instead of the nucleus being the cell's brain, which we've heard forever and ever that the nucleus is the brain, this doctor has identified that the cell membrane is actually the cell's brain, and cell membrane functions as an interface between the cell's internal environment and the external world, which processes environmental signals and directs cellular behavior accordingly. And so I just thought it was really fascinating to have this brought up in relationship to this bridge gate, this shift between the meanness of Aries that's all about it's all about me, it's all about what I want. It's all about kind of like a self-directed, and then moving into Taurus, it's kind of like, oh no, it's like I need to think about how what I'm doing is affecting the world around me. So, I thought this was just super fascinating. And it's also kind of parallels the way that our emotions operate. So just like the cell membrane, it interprets external stimulus to guide the cell's actions, our emotions also process environmental inputs to inform our responses and decisions. So there's a lot of talk in the human design community right now about this big shift that's happening in around now in 2027 is the year when this major shift is supposed to happen, which is from it's a mutation in the solar plexus, the emotional solar plexus center, which essentially gives our emotional processing center, more awareness. And it basically posits that humans are going through this kind of genetic mutation in a certain way where we are becoming more emotionally aware and like not just reactive when it comes to our emotions, but there's certain more emotional awareness that's coming in. And so I thought that this quantum biology theory that the cell membrane would be the smartest part about it, because it is interfacing with the external world and not just focus on its own kind of selfish gene qualities of like survival of the fittest kind of Darwinian stuff, Darwinian ideas, but it's actually more of like a collaborative, interdependent philosophy. And I like the idea that our emotional evolution is actually quite similar to that as well, where emotional insights come through that actually are more conscious than our conscious brain and our mental thinking. And so, there's this idea that our feelings can be more attuned to our surroundings than our rational minds can. And this is something that has come up a lot over this full moon in Libra, Venus retrograde period, is thinking a lot about the intelligence of emotions and the intelligence of our bodies. And it's something I think about all the time. I grew up as such a mentally intellectually driven person, and spending time with my parents makes me kind of understand why that was really rewarded, to know facts and figures and have really clear numbers and concepts about what's going on in the world around me, but not necessarily how it's affecting me, or that interface between my emotional reality and the truth or the objective reality out there. And I think that what might be happening in human evolution right now, it's something that I want to explore a lot further as I continue on with this project and beyond, is this notion of emotional intelligence being something that is having massive breakthroughs, that is so much more that we can discover through understanding our feelings, and especially that interface between how our emotions are processing the environment around us in order to inform our responses and decisions that aren't purely rational at all, but they make waves within the world. So I digress a little bit, but thanks for listening to all that. Integrating the insights from the gate of ordering and quantum biology and this emotional evolution, really, I'd say, encourage us to trust the innate wisdom of our emotions, especially during times of change or new beginnings that could feel purely chaotic and disordered, rather than having this like deep-rooted desire to sort it all out and put things in a nice little row. It's more like surrendering to this chasm, to this chaotic void, and knowing that that is a place where our emotions can be the thing that helps us to innovate. So by valuing and understanding our emotional responses, we can navigate the complexities of life with more authenticity and adaptability, in my humble opinion. This gate that is taking us through the weekend, from Wednesday through the weekend, is deeply creative energy, and it really teaches us that messiness isn't a mistake, but is the birthplace of genius and the birthplace of innovation. So difficulty at the beginning, the early stages of anything new are going to feel awkward. It's just how it is. They're going to feel confusing. They're going to feel scary. And that is ultimately the sign that something truly original is trying to emerge. So, our reflection for the gate of ordering for this end of the week, Wednesday through Sunday, is where in my life am I feeling overwhelmed by a messy beginning? And can I lean into it with curiosity instead of trying to control it? Curiosity is one of my favorite qualities of being, and I think it's super, super essential right now. So, if things feel chaotic this week, take a breath and resist the urge to force clarity. It has to be a primordial soup before that first single cell organism can arise. So it might be a little murky at first, as we kind of move from this independent, individualistic me to seeing how we interconnect with the world around us. And that's just natural. You can trust that, kind of like water finding its course or a river making its way downstream, order will be emergent instead of enforced. And give yourself and others grace to be beginners at this time. It takes a lot, and if we have fear and we don't let ourselves have that space to find what wants to emerge, then we can easily find ourselves grasping for that control and that continuity with the past, which is just obviously something that we need to leave behind and allow for something new to happen. So I saw an article recently that I'm going to put the link in the show notes if I can remember the author of it, but it was a Substack article that was talking about activism being, kind of this thing that is needed and essential, obviously, but that a lot of activism that we're seeing right now is reactionary rather than creationary. And this was a massively shared article that was going around, and I just really love that term creationary as the opposite of reactionary, because it is true. It's like that spoke to this idea of something new, completely new, arising out of a void, as opposed to organizing things into nice little rows, but they're still the things that were already there. So I really love that creationary idea. Maybe that's not a verb, but you know what I mean. Anyway, let's give each other grace to be beginners, to be in the void, to allow something new to rise up and come into order. The mantra for this gate is, I welcome the unknown. I trust that within chaos, new life is finding its way. So moving along a little bit to planetary movers and shakers of the week. April 16th, Mercury is entering Aries, and Mercury is our cosmic messenger, the messenger between worlds, the planet of communication and commerce and travel and technology in some ways, and all of these things that go awry when Mercury retrograde hits the scene. But Mercury is coming into fiery Aries and leaving the dreamy waters of Pisces behind. Mercury was in Aries and retrograded back into Pisces and is coming back again. So we're kind of repeating some steps that we've already taken. But as Mercury moves forward and picks up speed and enters Aries out of Pisces, we can expect sharper thoughts and quicker words and maybe a little bit of impatience in conversations. So with Mercury direct in Aries, we'll want to say what we mean and mean what we say, but try to be conscious about debate and a certain impetuousness when it comes to communication. A lot of times Mercury and Aries can have a certain debating, I'm right, you're wrong kind of independent quality to it. So let's be mindful of that if we can. I'm going to try to. And embrace the clarity that's coming from this fiery placement of Mercury, but recognize that it could add a little bit of assertion to communication that has been lacking. And so I'd say a tip for Mercury in Aries is to channel this kind of fast thinking energy into fresh ideas or bold new innovations and moves, but pause before hitting send on that spicy text or saying something that you don't want to have to backtrack on later. April 18th this week, we have Mars entering Leo, finally, after many, just forever in Cancer. Mars was entered Leo and then retrograded back through Leo into Cancer, and then has been backtracking going forward across the placements in Cancer. And so when Mars enters Leo again and going forward with no retrograde in sight, it is bringing a lot of heart-centered energy into the picture. It's time to take creative risks and act from the heart and just don't be afraid to be seen. Mars in Leo wants to move and wants to move with style and be on stage a little bit. And this, for better or for worse. This is a big shift from the inward and watery vibes of Mars in Cancer that were very focused on nurturance and the home. And Mars is kind of uncomfortable in Cancer because Mars wants to move forward and kind of act with a direct kind of motion. And Cancer is a place that's ruled by the moon. It's a sign that's ruled by the moon. That's a lot more about the ebbs and flows and the tides. And so Mars and the moon have very different energies. And so for the past while, Mars in Cancer has been creating a little bit of this like 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of feeling, I'd say. So Mars in Leo will kind of be like, ta-da, here I am. There, you might feel a certain surge of bravery or ambition or a little dramatic flair coming back into your life. And so welcome your inner performer, allow that energy in. And I'd say this with both of these fire signs, Mercury in Aries and Mars in Leo. It's a time to go after what you want loudly and proudly. But again, like I said with Mercury in Aries, the time to watch out for ego clashes and know that not every battle is worth the performance. So yeah, it's kind of just, we've had a lot of time to reflect with a lot of retrograde planets, and now we have all planets going forward, and we're out of eclipse season, and we are entering Taurus season as well, and kind of getting a bit warmer. Coming up on Beltane, which is a fire festival in the pagan wheel of the year. And so there is a lot of fire energy. It's like we can feel it. Things are starting to heat up a little bit and solidify and not be in that kind of Aries innocence anymore, I will say. So this week the moon is waning, and that can help us to release and reflect what has happened in this full moon period. So as we step into the new beginnings of the gate of ordering, Mercury in Aries, Mars in Leo, and then finally Taurus season on Sunday, we can clear out the clutter that doesn't fit anymore in this new paradigm. And so, yeah, I definitely recommend doing some journaling this week. If you want to become a member of Embody the Revolution, it is my paid membership on Substack. And I do send out journaling prompts every week about the energies of the week, as well as a nice big informational workbook for each zodiac season. And then I also do somatic practices every week that are related to the the energies of the week, and it is really fun. We'll also do some breathwork sessions, community reflection sessions. There's a lot of engagement with this paid subscription, so I do invite you to join by becoming a paid subscriber if that sounds interesting to you, to kind of go deeper into these energies, because it's changed my life. It could change yours. Who knows? I think I'm ready to finish up there. I'm headed on a shuttle and then a boat and then another boat tomorrow. But I am glad to be here with you today on my Substack. I do have a mini ritual for the week ahead about honoring your growth and embracing new beginnings, letting that emergent order come into the picture. And so it's just a simple ritual that you can do with a candle. So check out Substack at astrosomatics.substack.com to subscribe, either for free or as a paid subscriber, to get all of these extra bonuses. And just have a beautiful week ahead. This week is a perfect cocktail of initiation energy with all the planets direct. That's the big one, but new ideas are building and messy starts might be happening, and planets are moving into fiery signs, encouraging a little bit more boldness of action and just beauty and self-confidence coming into the picture. So trust the process and stay curious, and go ahead and celebrate the chaos a little bit if you can. The world does feel like a mess right now. I won't sugarcoat it, but if we can really look at the chaos feeling as a chasm that will allow new growth to come into it. I think about a volcano. I walked on a volcano field once and seeing the little new plant life coming out of this lava field that's like, looks like black tar, and then there's little sprouts poking up. Feels kind of like that energy. So growth doesn't look perfect, but it is alive, and that's what matters. So thanks for joining me on Cycles of Time. As usual, it's lovely to have you here. So stay in touch. You can find me at astrosomatics.com, Cycles of Time podcast, and astro.somatics on Instagram. Or you can subscribe at astrosomatics.substack.com to get the podcast in your inbox every Monday. And if you become a paid subscriber to my Embody the Revolution membership, you can deepen your journey with the seasons of the Wheel of the Year in community, with a lot of movement and breath and embodiment practices. So I'd love to have you join. And yeah, if you're listening to this on a podcast player, don't forget to hit the subscribe button or leave a comment or share it with someone who you think would resonate with this material, somebody who's interested in the Wheel of the Year, or human design or astrology. I would love to connect with them, and I would love to always hear your thoughts and hopes and dreams in the comments. So thanks again for being here. Have a beautiful week ahead.